And if you look back at we have 40 plus years of history now with NLP. Major contributions have been made. You wrote some books, you trained many people. What are your biggest contributions to the field of NLP?
Well, the first model I created was the spatial reframe, which was, it came out of, and all the models that I've created came out of my training, which makes sense. I mean, because with the six-step reframe, you're only working with one part.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that lots of times, not all the time, but lots of times, very inadequate, because I found that there were very many times where there were a few parts in there
Mm-hmm.
in conflict.
Yeah.
And this was my first real discovery of parts. And so I thought, well, you know, we need a model that addresses two parts in conflict.
Mm-hmm.
And so I developed this model, this process. And I think part of it came from my experience in Gestalt, because
Mm-hmm.
I was trained in Gestalt as well as transactional analysis. And so I created this four-chair thing where people become one part, and then they get up, break state, and become another part, and the mediator mediates.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a whole protocol of questions in order to, I mean, the intention I took from the six-step reframe about what do you want for the person, what do you want from the other part, you know, what's your purpose, that kind of thing. And it was pretty powerful. I also developed the whole thing of sorting by other, which wasn't really an important element in the rapport tools, the tools for getting rapport, but I found in my experience that that was really, really important.
Can you explain a little bit what sorting by other is?
Sorting by other is two-pronged. It has to do with your point of view and intention. First of all, sorting by other means you have to pay full attention to the other person, which is uptime.
Yeah.
All your consciousness has to be on that person. And your intention is for the other's benefit. That's the piece that's different. That the intention has to be on the other person. And that was a big difference. I found it in my training to be a really, really big difference. I worked on the, I can't think of the other models right now. I worked on I learned the Enneagram. It's an ancient Sufi typology. And I wrote a book. I developed and wrote a book how NLP and the Enneagram could work together.
Yeah.
Probably my biggest model is boundaries. Boundaries in human relationships. And that is not per se NLP, but it wouldn't have happened without my NLP skills. And I find it very complementary and necessary.
Yeah.
Because I know this is rather grandiose, but every problem, go deep enough, it gets back to boundaries. And at that time, I had a group of 8 assistant trainers. They would rotate each year. I would take 4 new ones in each year. And the program was 2 years. They had to be, of course, master practitioners. They had gone through my training. And I was doing a practitioner and master practitioner once a month, weekends. And then the assistant trainers and I would meet the day before and the day after each training. And they did that for a year. And also at night, they would do presentations of small pieces of NLP, both for their learning and for the benefit of the group, if they wanted to come. And I presented this group of really well-trained professionals with this whole idea of boundaries and gave them tasks to do about boundaries. And they were my research lab about what boundaries were. And I worked on that for many years, began to teach it before I really knew what it was all about. I learned a lot. And then I wrote the book where I really learned what boundaries are and how to do them. And I do a training in a 6-day training in boundaries now.
And one of your contributions as well is your involvement in bringing NLP to Europe.
Yes.
And as a first country, Holland. Can you tell a little bit about how that went about, the introduction of NLP on our continent here?
Well, my institute in those days was on Prince Street. I lived in a townhouse, and I lived in the top 2 floors, and my office was the bottom 2 floors. My conference room was the bottom floor, and my offices was the second floor, first floor. And one day, a Dutch gentleman came to the door, and it was Jaap Hollander. And he had just been out in Phoenix going to an Ericksonian conference.
Yeah.
And I forgot to mention in talking about the history of NLP, my involvement and my experience with Dr. Erickson, but I'll get there. Anyway, Jaap had heard about NLP, and so he found my address and he stopped and he said he wanted me to come over there. My partner at the time was Frank Stas, and teach it, do like a 4-day intro. So we came over to Nijmegen, I believe it was 1982, I'm not sure. And we taught a 4-day intro, everybody loved it. They wanted more. So that summer, we went over to Nijmegen and did 12 days of the first practitioner training that was done in Europe.
So Holland was the first country, in fact? Okay.
Yep. And the second summer, we went back. I had several assistant trainers. There were at least 60 people in that training. It was a great training. People were marvelous. I had a wonderful time. But Jaap and I didn't get along for some reason. I don't know.
But the nice thing is that you brought NLP together to Europe.
Yes.
As a joint effort.
Yes. Oh yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then the same thing happened, seemingly. It was crazy. One day, a lady knocked on our door, on my door. And it was Marie-Claire Lefebvre. And she was very much an entrepreneur in Belgium.
Yeah.
She had brought over a lot of interesting people. And she said, well, I want to do a practitioner training in Belgium. And so I wasn't working for Jaap anymore, so I went, yeah, right.
Why not? Yeah.
So we actually did the same thing. We did 12 days in the summer, and then came back and did 12 more days. And we did it up in the Ardennes in Saint-Hubert. And then Marie-Claire started bringing me over. By that time, Frank had moved to the West Coast, and so I was doing it by myself. And So she brought us over, she started bringing us over for, she started doing on a regular basis practitioner and master practitioner training in Brussels or just outside of Brussels.
Yeah.
And then eventually she started bringing me over to do Enneagram trainings, hypnosis. And then from there, I went to France, to Paris, and did quite a few practitioner and master practitioner trainings in Paris. Not the whole 4 days
Yeah.
at once, but you know, I do
In
8
part,
days
yeah.
and whatever. And then some of my trainers did it. And then I started to do hypnosis in Paris. It was really funny when I was in Belgium and somebody asked, well, are you going to do hypnosis in Paris? Everybody said, oh, no, no, no. The French, they're scared of hypnosis. They won't do it. And I went, okay. And then somebody asked me to do it, so I went and I did it, and
they loved it.
they love it. They love it.
You know, one of the interesting things from your books is that you say you're teaching the pure NLP, like how Richard and John envisioned it, formed it. What do you mean by that? What is the pure NLP or the original NLP? How would you describe that?
That's a tough question. I think mostly my concern has been, because I trained and certified the first trainers in Europe.
Yeah.
Eric Schneider is one of those. And that was a group of 4, I believe. My sense has been over the years that people add their own stuff, which is fine.
Yeah.
But I think what's important is that people learn the fundamentals without mixing up other stuff. Once people have the fundamentals, then you can bring in spirituality, shamanism, whatever.
Yeah.
But you need those building blocks. Yeah. And the building blocks are simple. Rapport, you know, all the patterns contained in the NLP assumptions. Rep systems, submodalities, anchoring, the processes, reframing, strategies.
Yeah.
I don't think too many people teach strategies anymore. I don't think they know how. But anyway, and then the master practitioner training. Those are the fundamental building blocks. Yeah. You can't build a house unless it's got a strong foundation. And practitioner and master practitioner are the foundation. If you want to get involved in, I mean, I think to combine, I combined NLP with the Enneagram, so. Yeah. But if you're teaching the basics of NLP, I don't think you want to bring in spirituality, religion, and whatever. Yeah. Because then people don't get trained in depth in the building blocks. Yeah. And one of the beautiful things about NLP is once you have those building blocks, you can go anywhere. Yeah. But if you don't have solid those building blocks, and not only just to know the building blocks, but to understand how it's possible that they're there, how is it possible that they work. Yeah.
It's very important to have the fundamentals first.
I'm not interested in training technicians. You know, any idiot can memorize a bunch of steps. Yeah. That's not what NLP is about. And that's and when people who are doing practitioner and master practitioner training, and they add lots of other stuff, and the stuff could be wonderful. People have holes in their training. Yeah. And I know it because I've been coming here now for 35 years, and I've come here meaning France, Belgium, and the Netherlands. I'd come here 5 or 6 times a year, and I would come in at the end of big trainings that several trainers would get together, like 100 people.
Yeah.
I do the last 5 days and certify people.
Yeah.
So I'd have to evaluate 100 people, and I'd use assistant trainers. I know when there are holes in people's training. I know when they don't know how to get rapport, or they may know how to calibrate, but they don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
They don't really know how to do chunking. I mean, and that just means, I mean, the first generation of trainers, well, I guess I'm the first generation trainer.
Yes, you are.
I guess I am. So the second generation of trainers, like in Europe, that I trained and I certified, they know all this stuff. But sometimes if they get involved in other things, they don't pay as much attention to certain blocks. And then, of course, you get into 3rd, 4th, 5th generation trainers, and they're trained by people who didn't do a thorough job because they wanted to bring other stuff in.
Yeah.
So, you know, you just keep going down.
You don't get a clear image of it. Yeah.
And solid.
Yeah.
So I used to get very upset about it. Now I don't anymore. It's like, hey, you know, you can't control information, and you can't control how people use information.
Yeah.
All you can do is do your thing, what you think is
best.
Not the right thing, but what you think is important.
Yeah.